Nyamji Chimbur Tsudan Nimi Jang Zone Munum Chimbur Ngakata Bakar Targan Santo Shirmarto Tumba Tikje Janla Ki Sham Tsar Mechan Rawar Seringi Jankamsa Jawar Tikji Shanla Yilarma Jimmy Panzo Jala Sora De Gongju Topan Power Shinji Lo Gongju Topan Power Shinji Lo Gongju Topan Power Shinji.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Today we'll continue studying the Sutra of Great Liberation. We've now reached the part about Prince Virtuous to see, and 3,000 others came before the Buddha to confess their misdeeds. Yesterday we covered a section on confession. This section is also found in the Suvarṇaprabhāsa Sūtra, which has several different translations. It's mainly in the confession chapter of Dharmaksema's translation. The section we discussed, especially the third paragraph, the wording is pretty similar. We mentioned this content earlier. Let me share this detail to you as well. Then there is something else to note. After Prince Virtuous to see and the 3,000 others followers completed their confession, they spoke verses to praise the Buddha. And we just covered this yesterday. It begins with, only the Buddha alone is foremost, parent of the three realms, the omniscient one, all the way to, thus I now take refuge in the Buddha and revere you as I do the Buddhas of the 3 times. All of this section is found in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra. In the Shastra, it's divided into 2 sections. The first part, from only the Buddha alone is foremost, to treating enemies and loved ones with equal benefit. This section is praise of the Buddha. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva says these are verses praising the Buddha, but he doesn't say exactly which sutra they come from. The translation style here is basically the same. Then from I take refuge in the one of great diligence to the end, and revere you as I do the Buddhas of the 3 times. It's said that this part comes from the Dhargagama. I haven't had a chance to check whether the Dhargagama actually contains this to praise the Buddha. It's said that there was a ghost king who praised the Buddha using this very similar verses. Actually, this entire praise appears in other places too. Some commentaries on the Lotus Sutra mention this as well. The Hinayana also acknowledges and believes in the Buddhas of the 10 directions because according to some Hinayana sutras, they believe there is only one Buddha. They basically don't mention things like Dharma protectors or Dakins. But some commentaries also say that according to the Hinayanas, Dhargagama, there is also faith in and praise of the Buddhas of the 10 directions. They use this as their evidence. Yesterday's section above is in the Tibetan version as well. Yes, the section below is not in Tibetan, but this current section is found in the Tibetan text. So below we'll give a brief introduction. Earlier it was explained that the Buddha praised Prince Virtuous to see a truly a great being 3 times, the last time praising him twice. After this, Prince Virtuous to see and the 3,000 others followers offered their praise to the Buddha. After praising that, at this moment the Buddhas of the 10 directions, not just Buddha Shakyamuni alone, but also the Buddhas of all directions, began speaking with one voice for Prince Virtuous to see and his group speaking such verses. The content of the verses coming up is mainly about about repaying the Buddha's kindness because Prince Virtuous to see and the 3,000 followers had confessed before the Buddha, and the Buddha accepted their confession and warmly welcomed them with praise. Once their confession was accepted, there was a natural need to repay the Buddha's kindness. So why do we need this section here? It's like when we attend a Dharma ceremony. At the ceremony, you may have the chance to confess and the chance to practice. If so, ultimately, those who receive this opportunity should have a heart of gratitude toward the three jewels. This is how this passage came to be. It says below, if you wish to seek the path to Buddhahood, always follow those of great learning. Treat them as a good teacher, and you will attain Buddhahood before long. It tells us that if we want to accomplish the path to Buddhahood, we should constantly follow those who are learned and broadly educated. This is truly very important. Whether we are choosing a teacher to take refuge with or have already taken refuge in Buddhism, if you just keep following someone who is narrow-minded or someone who knows nothing about Buddhism, your future might end up looking like that too. I often think to myself that we are very fortunate. When we first studied the Dharma and ordained, we all encountered someone like our root guru, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, who mastered both Sutra and Tantra, kept pure precepts, and was truly extraordinary. He was a teacher with true realization. And because of this, later we were able to gain a basic understanding of Buddhism. At the same time, I also know that if the teacher we had encountered had been just ordinary, or perhaps had impure conduct and improper views or any other kinds of problems, well, I don't even know where I'd be now. I might not even have a basic Buddhist perspective. So for each of us, if you want to seek the path to Buddhahood, you should first rely on a teacher who is very learned, whether in the Sutra or the Tantric or even in worldly knowledge, someone who is truly broad-minded and well-educated. Then you should serve such a good teacher properly. This is truly regarding them as a good spiritual guide. The character thought in some versions has the heart radical below, and in some it doesn't, but I think having it might be better, because when you have such a learned person and you serve them properly and correctly, truly treating your spiritual guide and root guru with that kind of devotion, then attainment will not be very far away. Actually praying to your guru and relying on them, viewing all their actions with pure perception, these things truly reduces obstacles in your practice. You see, every time we have a class, there's either thunder or rainbows or a rainstorm. Anyway, this year's weather has been, the day before yesterday it hailed. Yesterday I heard the rainbow was quite beautiful, and today the thunder is quite loud. Sometimes we hear the sound of cuckoos, and sometimes it's the sound of crows. I mentioned that man from Nyarong the other day. He had a squad specifically for killing crows. On both sides of his palace there were many people holding bows, arrows, and guns. He really disliked crows. He didn't allow a single crow around him, and he also forced this rule on the common people. So many common people watch the sky every day with their bows and arrows. Whenever crows flew over his rooftop, they'd start shooting guns, but for us, we should see them as auspicious birds related to Mahakala. Moreover, the sound that comes from their mouths, it's like they're all saying the letter A, a syllable representing prajna, emptiness. So for us, this is something that I've listened to some teachings from past masters, including some audio recordings. I often hear the sound of crows in the background. There are two types, red-billed crows and black-billed crows. I'm not quite sure why I just drifted off from the middle. I've even lost track of what I was saying. The point is, those who seek the path to Buddhahood should rely on a particularly good spiritual guide. If so, attaining Buddhahood won't be very far away. But if you don't have a very good teacher, and if the auspicious connections with your guru are damaged in some way, then it's truly very difficult to succeed in your practice. For each of us, we can also see this in our own practice. If the past great masters started with good auspicious when they first relied on their teachers, then in their later practice, although there may be some obstacles, they usually weren't very significant. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche said in one of his songs that when he was young, the auspicious connections of relying on his teachers were very favorable. Because of this, in this very life, his practice of the Dharma encountered especially favorable conditions. I have a bit of a headache today. I'm not sure what's wrong. This is the first point. If one maintains pure precepts, this is called a true bhiksu. When monastics maintain pure precepts, just as we discussed yesterday, a bhikksu has 253 precepts, a bhikksunin has 364. If one can maintain these precepts, even if one cannot maintain every single minor one, but maintains the major ones very purely, then you truly live up to the name of a real bhikksu. If one can contemplate emptiness, this is called attaining samadhi. If we gain the insight to contemplate emptiness, that is attaining samadhi. Attaining true meditative concentration is called attaining samadhi. I've mentioned before, for many of us Buddhists, if you have the opportunity to ordain and become a pure monastic, that would be the most meaningful thing you could do with your life. We often see many monastics whose conduct and deportment are especially pure. In such cases, their entire lives are most meaningful. But if you don't have such conditions, whether you're monastic or lay practitioner, the most fundamental thought of Buddhism is the view of emptiness. Emptiness isn't what some scholars today say, oh, Buddhism just means everything is empty, so don't be attached to anything. It's not like that. True emptiness, as explained in Prajna teachings, is free from the four extremes and 8 elaborations. Actually, this is something each of us should try to experience, rather than just being so-called Buddhists who constantly love divination, fortune-telling, and receiving blessings. Of course, these are also forms of Buddhist activity, but most important thing is your view. Do you have a deeper understanding of emptiness? Do you have a profound altruistic mind, bodhicitta? If you do, you're a genuine Buddhist, regardless you're a lay or you're a monastic. This is very important. In the past, in Tibet, real insight into emptiness and bodhicitta was mostly found among those practicing in monasteries and institutes. Most lay practitioners would just listen to teachings on the 3 excellences, the 4 causes for rebirth in Sukhavat, or basic karma, the 3 refuges, and so forth. There weren't many who could truly dive deep into the view of emptiness and bodhicitta. But since His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche began teaching the Supreme Mahayana Dharma to the masses, things have changed quite a bit. Actually, it's the same in Han regions. What do most lay practitioners do? They recite Amitabha, release captive animals, make offerings. Wherever there's fundraising, they immediately donate, build stupas. Among our communities, what do people often talk about? Where to build stupas, where to do good deeds. This is very good, of course. These are worldly virtue and they are very good. But most importantly, do you have samadhi? Do you have the view of emptiness? Do you have bodhicitta? Do you have renunciation? This is what's truly essential. Of course, realizing these things is not so simple. You can't just make a little offering or donate a little money nowadays. It's even more convenient. Sending digital red envelopes is so easy. This is very simple, I think. For life release, going to the seaside once a month is also convenient. There's nothing to it. You can circumambulate or make pilgrimages to sacred mountains. But to attain a view that is truly extraordinary, that requires dedicated study, it's just like going to school from elementary through middle school. Each Buddhist treatise, you need to complete them all layer by layer, volume by volume. Only then can authentic views arise in your mind stream. So whether we're Han or Tibetan Buddhists, it's critical for us to comprehensively elevate our understanding of the principles and our level of discipline, concentration, and wisdom. Otherwise, we remain stuck at the level of beginners. Oh, I'll get a refuge certificate. I'll go burn some incense at the temple. I'll pray for my grandchildren for a big, happy family. I hope everything to be peaceful. I want to be wealthy, and I want to be healthy. Every day it's just such prayers for blessings and aspirations, prayers for blessings with virtuous intentions. In reality, this cannot sever the root of samsara. To truly transcend samsara, we need Mahayana bodhicitta. To truly sever the root of samsara, we need non-dual wisdom. Everyone must understand this clearly. Otherwise, why do we always emphasize study and contemplation? Why do we say this? Because without study and contemplate, you can never taste the deep nectar-like flavor of Buddhism. Well, everyone should contemplate this carefully. If one is able to be diligent, this is called one who practices the path. If one practices diligently day and night, they are called a practitioner of the Bodhisattva path. But if you aren't diligent at all, lazy every day, just indulging in eating, drinking, and entertainment, you cannot be called a practitioner of the path. Such a person is lazy, or we could say a vulgar person. If one attains nirvana, this is called true bliss. if we attain either Hinayana Nirvana or Mahayana Nirvana, this is the most true happiness possible in this world. Just as the Avatamsaka Sutra says, among all excellent worldly pleasures, the bliss of cessation is supreme. This is said very well. Among all excellent and wondrous worldly pleasures, none can compare with the bliss of noble cessation. The bliss of cessation is truly the best there is, so each of us needs to seek such bliss. As for worldly pleasures, as I explained a few days ago, it's like pursuing the beauty of water bubbles. They appear but are insubstantial, fleeting, and gone in an instant. Next, we discuss great Shramanas who maintain precepts. This refers to bhiksus who maintain pure precepts. Bhiksuns of great pure precepts. These are bhiksuns who have received the full precepts and maintain pure discipline. That is to say, male and female monastics regularly perform posada every fortnight. On the 15th and 30th of each month they perform posada, which we often call the recitation of precepts, and establish pure boundaries and practice alms rounds. To establish pure boundaries means that monastics in their daily lives need to designate pure areas. This isn't very clear in Tibetan, but it means that when monastics eat, they traditionally go on alms rounds to collect food. There are special places for preparing food. In between there are boundaries where they establish pure areas. As for pure areas, there seem to be 4 types, some of donors and others are for different purposes. Generally, monastics should regularly recite the precepts in their dwellings. As we see today in Theravada Buddhism, the monks' dormitories, kitchens, and dining areas are completely separated to avoid any contamination, because if delicious food is placed nearby, monastics might be tempted to eat in the afternoon. So, they establish these pure areas and then go on their alms rounds, wearing the sanghata. As for the sanghata, this refers to our monastic robes, the kasaya. In Tibetan, there's also mention of carrying a kakara, a staff with rings, while on alms rounds. Monastics sometimes call it a meditation staff, a staff with rings. When they carry it, all the celestial beings are very joyful and respectfully join their palms in homage, whether in early Buddhism or in modern-day Theravada traditions. Monastics who maintain pure precepts in places like Thailand, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka all still follow these practices. Now, in some other places, they may not follow this practice because, for example, in Tibet in the past, people didn't live in urban centers like in India. Instead, they lived in scattered mountain valleys and remote villages. So there was no way, as the conditions weren't there. Moreover, many monasteries are in very isolated valleys. Thus, from the beginning, they didn't have this practice. Regardless, monastics with pure deportment and conduct, all the gods of the desire realm, headed by the heaven of the 33 and the form realm, constantly pay them respect and homage. Here it says, as for the Buddhas of the 10 directions, I cause celestial beings to constantly serve, respect, and assist them through various actions, just as the lesser gods serve Indra, the king of the gods, just as the devas always respect and serve the king. Monastics with pure precepts and pure conduct receive respect and offerings from all celestial beings. Just as the Dasha Kakra Kshitigarbha Sutra says, even a fragment of the kasaya of one with pure precepts is respectfully venerated and offered to by countless celestial beings. If someone carries a piece of a monastic's kasaya on their body, all evil spirits and heterodox beings cannot harm you. There is very great merit. That is why many of us even now treasure tiny fragments of our Guru, His Holiness, Jigme Punsok Rinpoche's robes or short strands of his hair. We carry them with us, believing they are the best protective amulets. For such a great bodhisattva like him, needless to say, even just an ordinary monastic with pure precepts, their robes and so forth, even the dust they step upon, are respectfully venerated by countless non-humans and celestial beings. In some Vinaya texts, it's explained that there was a Shramanera named Kuna who wore Pamsukula robes. Many celestial beings particularly detest all sorts of things in the human realm. They find even our cleanest food and houses to be quite filthy. Yet if a monastic wears even the dirtiest pamsukula robes, which, as you know, are clothes from corpses in charnel grounds, the celestial beings will still come to respectfully venerate them. There are such accounts of them using the water from washing those robes to bathe themselves. So those who maintain pure precepts, people show them great respect. Celestial beings likewise respect, assist, protect, and bless them. Next, what do we discuss? Next, we discuss the 8 ways to repay the Buddha's kindness. Repaying the Buddha's kindness is actually very important, because for each of us, the kindness of the Tathagata is truly immense. As it says in the Avatamsaka Sutra, for countless eons, the Tathagata worked diligently and suffered for sentient beings. How can those in the world repay the great teacher's kindness? Throughout countless eons, the Tathagata gave his head, eyes, and marrow, doing so much for us sentient beings. Then, through what methods can we worldly people repay the kindness of the Tathagata, our great teacher? The Avatamsaka Sutra continues with much more. I would rather fall into the 3 lower realms, but I am unwilling to be apart from the Tathagata, because the Tathagata is extremely, extremely important to us. Later in the Avatamsaka Sutra, after the verses I just quoted, likely in the chapter on entering the Dharma realm, it explains much more. As long as I encountered the Buddha in this very life, I would rather experience the suffering of the 3 lower realms and face all sorts of torment and difficulties. It explains many such principles. So, encountering the Dharma in this very life is our good fortune. Then we should have a heart of gratitude toward the Tathagata, toward our kind teachers, if he have such great kindness toward us. But we have not the slightest heart of gratitude, thinking only of our own enjoyment. Other than that, no heart of gratitude, then we are purely ungrateful. In such a case, even the worldly detest this, not to mention our Mahayana Buddhism. So we should repay the Buddha's kindness. To repay the Buddha's kindness, do we need to make offerings every day or accomplish especially great things every day? Not necessarily. All of us here have the responsibility to repay the Buddha's kindness. Today here, according to the Sutra of Great Liberation, there are 8 specific ways to do this, and I hope everyone will remember them. There are 8 ways to repay the Buddha's kindness. Doing each one of these things actually means repaying the Buddha's kindness. In doing so, you will naturally repay the kindness of your teachers, your parents, and all others. First, the first one we just discussed, because when one ordains, even celestial beings respect them. Today they receive immediate rewards, and in the future they shall have immeasurable merit. Therefore, ordaining and maintaining prohibitive precepts is called repaying the Buddha's kindness. After we ordain, we should experience immediate rewards in both body and mind, an abundance of joy and tangible benefits in this very life. When you ordain, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas praise you, and all non-humans and spirits praise you too. Moreover, some people, after ordaining, immediately illnesses and depression are cured. All sorts of situations, such merits exist even in this present life, needless to say, future lives. Last year we explained the sutra praising the Sangha's merit, which explained about the virtues of being a monastic. There's also the sutra on the merit of ordination, which I originally intended to translate. There are some prose passages, but I haven't had time to translate them. The sutra on the merit of ordination also explains much about the immeasurable merit of the future. So ordaining and maintaining pure precepts truly does repay the Buddha's kindness. A Mahayana precept sutra that says, if one can maintain precepts, one will see the Buddha. Keeping pure precepts is actually a way of seeing the Buddha. This too is repaying the Buddha's kindness. This is the first method. If there's no other way for some of us, then simply ordain and maintain pure precepts. If you remain like this, actually this is one method of repaying the Buddha. This is the first one. Then the second one, the Buddha again told Prince Virtuous to see. Moreover, son of the lineage, apart from me and the Bodhisattvas, all people in the world who generate pure faith in their minds and understand the Buddhas of the 10 directions constantly abide without nirvana, the Dharma and Sangha are likewise. Such people are called those who repay the Buddha's kindness. he calls out to Prince Virtuous to see. Apart from me, Buddhas of the 10 directions certainly have this realization. And also the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattvas, all people in the world, apart from these bodhisattvas, we should help them generate firm, pure faith. What kind of faith? To understand that the Buddhas of the 10 directions constantly abide without nirvana. This is the definitive, ultimate teaching that we discussed in the lower volume. It explains that the Tathagata, the Dharma, and the Sangha do not cease. So we should help people in the world understand this and generate faith. What kind of faith should be generated? To understand that the Buddhas of the 10 directions constantly abide without nirvana. To understand that all Dharma and Sangha constantly abide without ceasing. Likewise, such people can also repay the Buddha's kindness. So I think the second method is to study the Uttara Tantra and the Buddhagarbha Sutra. Without studying, we might not understand why the 3 jewels do not cease. Once we study the ultimate teachings, we'll understand that the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha should constantly abide without ceasing. We'll completely understand these principles. Generating such faith actually is a means repaying the Buddha's kindness. I also hope that we Buddhists should study both the first turning's teachings on karma as well as the second turning of the Dharma wheel's teachings, as we just discussed, the prajna, thought of the Buddha, the Madhyamaka emptiness teachings. When others say, your Buddhism speaks of all being empty, we should know that it's not outsiders imagine. We should truly know beyond mere conventional appearance the ultimate nature of all phenomena, and that it's merely conventional appearance. When you truly generate certainty about this, then basically you understand theoretically the meaning of the second turning. Then, like the Uttara Tantra, the Dharmadhatustava, and other texts, including the Buddhagarbha Sutra, the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the Tathagatagarbha Sutra, and so forth, they teach that the Tathagata, meaning the luminosity, constantly abiding without ceasing. We should clearly understand these principles of the Tathagata, constantly abiding without ceasing. As Buddhists, we should study this. If we just get a refuge certificate and don't study anything, at most recite the Diamond Sutra or the Amitabha Sutra, and then everything is finished, how can you be called a Buddhist? It's simply not enough. Just like someone who only completes the first grade of elementary school and then stops there. From a worldly perspective, it's probably still not enough. Although they have studied first grade, but the level is insufficient to truly function or conduct themselves in the world. Buddhism is the same. To truly be a genuine Buddhist, whether lay or monastic, you definitely need to study the Tathagata's thought, that is, what's explained in texts like the Uttara Tantra, the principles of the Tathagata constantly abiding without ceasing. This is very important. This is the second method of repaying kindness. The third method of repaying kindness. Moreover, son of the lineage, all people in the world should have minds free from discriminating thoughts. What should worldly people accomplish? In the ultimate sense, all discrimination, all appearances actually don't exist. Minds free from discriminating thoughts, understanding the path of one vehicle. Whether in the past, in the future, or in the present, what the Buddhas of the 10 directions have proclaimed is solely the one vehicle. There is no second, nor is there a third. If one can generate such an intention, which means that if we can truly generate such certainty, we can generate such thought in our mind, then the mind is free from discriminating appearances. Such people are called those who repay the Buddha's kindness. The third way is that we worldly people should understand the principle of the ultimate single vehicle. After studying the Lotus Sutra, basically everyone is clear. If you do this, then you'll understand what the Buddhas of the 10 directions of past, future, and present have proclaimed is the ultimate single vehicle. While the Buddha may temporarily teach 3, 4 vehicles, 5 vehicles, 6 vehicles, 7 vehicles, 8 vehicles, 9 vehicles, as discussed in His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche's commentary on pointing out the nature of mind, these are the Tathagata's skillful proclamations. The Tathagata has the authority to proclaim it. As we said the other day, if you use non-dharma to explain dharma, it's also unreasonable. If you use dharma to explain non-dharma, it's also unreasonable too, but this is for ordinary people. The Buddha has the authority to use any means to benefit sentient beings. Why is it possible? Why he teaches the one vehicle as three? It's for the benefit of sentient beings. Teaching one vehicle as three vehicles is fine. Teaching three vehicles as one vehicle is also fine. Whether one vehicle or three vehicles exist or not, every sentence is for benefiting sentient beings. But we probably can't do this. We should try our best to explain pure Dharma as pure and impure Dharma as impure. Otherwise, we basically don't know the vastly different dispositions of sentient beings. This is the third method. Like we discussed the ultimate vehicle the other day, the monastics are repaying the Buddha's kindness. Understanding the three jewels indestructible also repays the Buddha's kindness. Understanding this, you don't need to do anything else. The third method is you truly understand the ultimate single vehicle through study, contemplation, and meditation. Wow, you've also repaid the Buddha's kindness. When your level of realization is somewhat high, repaying the Buddha's kindness is relatively easy. Otherwise, the methods of repaying the Buddha's kindness mentioned here may not work well. Moreover, son of the lineage, if there is even one person who, after my parinirvana, constantly generates faith and understanding. Faith and understanding in what? They faith in that all sentient beings possess Tathagata Garbha. As discussed earlier, after the Buddha's parinirvana, some people have immense faith in the Mahayana Buddhist thought. What kind of faith? All sentient beings possess Tathagata Garbha. Completely understanding this principle is also a means of repaying the Buddha's kindness. This is the fourth aspect discussed. From our current perspective, there are sentient beings with sharp faculties and those with dull faculties. Even beyond us, humans, including insects, maggots, ants, donkeys, horses, crows, magpies, all sorts of sentient beings, in reality, they all possess Tathagata Garbha, having complete faith in this principle and teaching it to others, which also repays the Buddha's kindness. In fact, this requires study. If you haven't studied Mahayana Dharma, you can merely say it verbally. All sentient beings possess the Tathagata Garbha nature. We can all say this verbally, but do we truly understand this principle? Truly, when conditions are complete, these sentient beings will attain Buddhahood in the future. For example, in Finding Comfort and Ease in the Nature of Mind that we've studied before, it says Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva at one time went to Sri Lanka and found tens of thousands of maggots in a cesspool. At that time, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva manifested himself into the form of a bee. Among these maggots, he made a buzzing sound reciting the following: Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Later, after they heard this sound, they were all dus reborn in Sukhavatwal. This scriptural citation is sourced from the Mahayana Maharatnakuta Sutra. The sutra we often call the Ratnakuta Sutra or the Mahayana Karandavyuha Sutra exists in Chinese. I had originally intended to teach it. I noticed that in Longchenpa's Treasury of Wish-Fulfilling Jewels, this passage is also quoted. However, what's quoted in the Treasury of Wish-Fulfilling Jewels is slightly different from what's quoted in Nature of Mind at Rest. What's quoted in the Treasury of Wish-Fulfilling Jewels is, when Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva went there, he first went to the hell realm, hungry ghost realm, and liberated tens of thousands of sentient beings with the 6-syllable mantra. Then he went to what is called Sri Lanka. At present, it's said a city in the lion country. There were many maggots in a cesspool, and he recited the 6-syllable mantra and Namo Buddha. Later, all these sentient beings became the Bodhisattva, mouth fragrant, and were reborn in Sukhavatwatu. I also looked at the Mahayana Maharatna Raja Sutra. The translation of Namo Buddhaya is slightly different, though it means Namo Buddhaya. What Longchenpa quotes in these two texts is slightly different, yet the general meaning is basically the same. The point is, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, by manifesting in the form of a bee, used this identity to teach them the Dharma. The Dharma taught was taking refuge in the three jewels and the six-syllable mantra. Through liberating sentient beings in this manner, they ultimately attain liberation. So we should also know that because we have complete faith that every sentient being possesses Tathagata Garbha, we should constantly establishing a Dharma connection with them, whether in the animal realm or in other realms. This is also very important. We don't necessarily have such great merit of realization and abandonment like Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, but we can also recite the six-syllable mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. Actually, this is very important. I've previously explained the merits of this mantra, but most importantly, in different treatises, the explanation is quite simple. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om is the secret blessings of the body, speech, and mind of all Buddhas of the three times, the gathering of wisdom in one essence. It also has the meaning of invocation. Mani means jewel. Padme means lotus. Hum means to grant, to bestow auspiciousness, to give, to pray. It has many meanings. The meaning is, I pray to the one who holds the lotus and jewel, which refers to Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, because Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva generally holds a precious wish-fulfilling jewel and a lotus. It's like this across both Tibetan and Chinese Buddhist traditions. His very name is derived from these sacred hand implements. In terms of literal meaning, it's very straightforward. The one who holds the lotus and jewel, I pray to you. Grant all the blessings, merit, and siddhis of the body, speech, and mind of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This is the meaning. In truth, by reciting such words of truth, such Vajra speech, reciting in the ear of every sentient being, the merit is immeasurable. Just like some miraculous medicines may appear very small, just a tiny bit, but as long as you taste it, all sorts of illnesses can be cured. Similarly, the power of some mantras and sacred medicine and the efficacy of supreme skillful means are truly inconceivable, because sentient beings possess Tathagata Garbha through simple mantras, the names of Buddhas, some straightforward methods, including using the Sutra of Great Liberation or other sacred objects to touch them and bless them, or recite a passage of text to them, all have merit. This also repays the Buddha's kindness. Having complete faith that sentient beings of the three realms possess Tathagata Garbha, which is the fourth way to repay the Buddha's kindness. Also, if one cultivates even one thought of virtue, not seeking the rewards of gods and humans, but directing it straight towards Supreme Bodhi, the supreme path, this is also called repaying the Buddha's kindness. No matter what virtue we cultivate, whether reciting sutras or making aspirations, even one thought of virtue, not seeking to obtain fame and gain for oneself or worldly rewards, but instead seek Supreme Bodhi. Making aspirations like this has especially supreme merit. Earlier, there was a scripture called The Array of Virtues of Manjushora's Buddha Field. In it, it says, all phenomena arise from causes and conditions. They abide in intention. Whatever intention one generates, that fruit will certainly mature. It seems the verses I translated are like this, but I saw in the Tripitaka, all phenomena belong to causes and conditions. Aspiration is their root. As one aspires and hopes, one obtains fruit accordingly. There's this verse. The meaning of these two verses should be the same, but the translations are different. The ancient translation also says, all phenomena belong to causes and conditions arising. Intention is their very foundation. Whatever aspiration one makes, the fruit is likewise obtained. So if even one thought of our virtue, aspirations are all toward Supreme Bodhi, just like Prince Virtuous to see and the 3,000 others. When they came, they confessed for the sake of sentient beings, not for themselves. We have already understand that reciting the Samantabhadra's aspiration prayer once for the sake of sentient beings. When I recite a mantra, I recite it for the benefit of all beings. This is very important. When you make such aspirations, you repay the Tathagata's kindness. If you don't do this, I do this for my own health and wealth. Then you close your eyes and contemplate, focusing intently like this. Actually, it doesn't necessarily repay the Buddha's kindness. At most, you're repaying your own kindness. Moreover, son of the lineage, the Buddha said, primarily the Buddhas of the 3 times, led by Buddha Shakyamuni, said, after my parinirvana, if there is even one person who, for even a brief moment, reads this Sutra of Great Liberation and respectfully honors the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and also respectfully serves and makes offerings to their own teachers, such a person is also said to be repaying the Buddha's kindness. After the Buddha's parinirvana, that should be us, right? We now, not to mention just a brief moment, we're all reading Mahayana Sutras. Look, from when we started until now, we've already read quite a portion. Moreover, we respect the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We also very respectfully make offerings to our teachers. Such a person can repay the Buddha's kindness. So if some of us make aspirations, we should recite more Mahayana Sutras, especially our Sutra of Great Liberation. Reciting it every day might be a bit difficult, but section by section, reciting it once every year, at the very least, you are repaying the Buddha's kindness. If you simply focus on reciting the Sutra of Great Liberation, you don't need to volunteer or go outside. Otherwise, going outside and arguing with Dharma friends, it's very tiring at times, right? Whether it's volunteering or construction projects. These are not so simple. Each task often brings with a whole pile of afflictions. It's better to close the door and recite the Sutra of Great Liberation. Tomorrow there won't be any volunteers coming out. Anyway, repaying the Buddha's kindness can be done in any way. When I recite the Sutra of Great Liberation, I have fewer afflictions. Arguing with them won't work. Whether monastics or lay practitioners, afflictions can be found everywhere. However, this is also very good practice. If you treat it as practice, it's very beneficial. This is the 6th method of repaying kindness. Now, for the 7th method, if a person gives away even a single item of wealth, giving away 1 penny, $1, €1, 1 Canadian dollar, in India the money is called rupees. You see, those who've been there know it's different. Rupees. Giving away a little bit, and food and drink, clothing, universally give to all assemblies. To universally and equally give to everyone. Of course, a little bit might not amount to much, but as long as your mind is willing to give, and if you give a portion of your wealth to benefit sentient beings, this is also called repaying the Buddha's kindness. Giving doesn't mean keeping the good things for yourself to eat and giving the bad things to others. Some people say, my offerings have gone bad. I want to offer them to the 3 jewels. Such an approach is wrong. In the words of my perfect teacher, it's also explained, the yellowed part of the butter, meaning the stale parts, cutting them to offer to the 3 jewels is not acceptable. We shouldn't do this. One should offer what one most likes and loves, the most delicious things, or give such things to sentient beings. Otherwise, like some people used to say, we are preparing these drinks to offer to the teachers. We don't eat this junk food. We are preparing to offer all of this to the guru because we don't eat this junk food. You can't do this. Next, the following is the 7th, the last method of repaying the Buddha's kindness. Moreover, son of the lineage, in my age of the final Dharma, if a person can transform one person. In Tibetan version, if one can transform a person means inspiring faith in another so that they attain right view. Some people may spark an interest in another person to have that person listen to the Sutra of Great Liberation for a brief moment. This is if one can transform a person or guiding one person. Some people might specifically come to guide others and teach this Dharma. Perhaps the Chinese meaning is like this. Some people can guide many people or individual people if they listen to this scripture for a very short time. What is this merit? It surpasses making other kinds of offerings to billions of bodhisattvas. Such is this Mahayana Sutra. Here, billions means hundreds of millions. In Tibetan, this billion is 100,000. Such is this Mahayana Sutra, the mother of all Buddhas and bodhisattvas. This Sutra of Great Liberation is the source of all Buddhas and bodhisattvas. Reciting the Buddha's name, honoring this sutra and all bodhisattvas. If people recite the Buddha's name, revere this scripture, and mindfully honor all bodhisattvas, with minds equal, without this and that. In their minds there's no duality, not this is Dharma, this is Sangha, not abandoning this and taking that, rejecting this and grasping that, free from such discrimination. Equally respecting the three jewels in this way, one also repays the Buddha's kindness. So when some of us listen to the Sutra of Great Liberation, we can also repay the Buddha's kindness. I think when we taught the Sutra of Great Liberation last year, it would have been better with more people. However, due to various current circumstances, it was simply not possible. Even some people who started listening at the beginning, I don't even know if they are still listening now. I can't tell from here. In many cases, a great many people attended the very first class. But as time went on, including our Khenpos and Khenmos, some throughout the entire teaching of this scripture, never once graced us with their presence. Perhaps they have missed their chance to repay the Buddha's kindness. Perhaps they're listening at home. They show up at the very first class and come at the end for the dedication. That's called a good beginning and end. They attend the opening session, and if they make it to the final one, they ignore everything in between. Originally, there should be virtuous in the beginning, middle, and end. They don't hold to this view. They just want a good beginning and end. Coming once for the first class and once for the last class, this is their definition of a good beginning and end. So perhaps some are just aiming for that beginning and end. Some people give up halfway. I simply don't know. In any case, all of us studying this sutra together truly repays the Buddha's kindness. Below it continues, Son the lineage, if during the age of the final Dharma there are those who wish to repay the Buddha's kindness, then even one thought in meditative concentration is a way of repaying the Buddha and practicing the Mahayana Dharma. One thought in meditative concentration, what does it surpass? Saving the lives of all people filling a trichiliocosm. If you were to save the lives of every single person filling a great trichiliocosm, that merit would be immense beyond measure. But if we have one thought of meditative concentration, these Mahayana teachings, especially the principles centered on the Sutra of Great Liberation, to contemplate and meditate on them, then this merit far surpasses that. While the merit of life release is great, contemplating the profound meaning of Mahayana Buddhism carries even greater merit. Slandering meditation and disrupting assemblies, if one slanders such meditators and disrupts sanghas practicing meditative concentration, then it's equivalent to taking the lives of all people and sentient beings, filling a great trichiliocosm as if you've killed them all. Thus, slandering the sanghas or those engaged in meditation, this is truly very frightening. Later there's another phrase, slandering meditation and disrupting assemblies. It's also fine without it. In Tibetan, removing this would be better. This part is not necessary. The karmic offense is likewise. So the karmic offense of slandering and disrupting sanghas is also like this. If a person sees others practicing virtue and slanders them, not believing or accepting, severing the seed of the three jewels, this is not called repaying the Buddha's kindness. We have just discussed 8 ways to repay the Buddha's kindness. What then constitutes a failure to repay his kindness? When we see some people practicing virtue, trying every means to find fault and slander them, unwilling to accept it, severing the lineage of the three jewels, more importantly, through slandering the Mahayana Dharma or the spiritual guides. Some people on the surface appear to be praising, but in reality they are also committing slander. This is truly very frightening. Now some people, for example, when slandering monastics, employ all manner of malicious methods, whether regarding discipline, view, and conduct. It sounds good, but actually it causes many sentient beings to lose their faith. If they lose the faith, the virtuous roots in their mind streams are also severed. When virtuous roots are destroyed and they practice wrong dharmas, they'll be called an Ishantika. One person's single statement can cause many people to develop wrong views. Especially now on the internet, the words slandering the three jewels, the gurus, and the spiritual guides can actually devastate countless people's virtuous roots. This certainly cannot be called repaying the Buddha's kindness. Not only is it not repaying the Buddha's kindness, but it also destroys Buddhism. Some people teach the Dharma, others work to undermine it through various methods. We should pay attention to this. Let's finish this section before we conclude for today. The section below is not in the Tibetan version, only in Chinese version. The meaning is quite straightforward, so I will explain it briefly. Below it says, We now bow our heads in homage to the Buddhas of the three times, past, future, and present. We simultaneously entrust our lives and take refuge in Buddha Shakyamuni. We also simultaneously take refuge in the 84,000 Dharma treasuries and in all other teachings beyond those 84,000, the Dharma the Buddha taught in different worlds. We also bow our heads to the layman Vimalakarti of the past and to Manjushra Bodhisattva, could be in the present or future as well. Below, Manjushra Bodhisattva will make an appearance soon in the text. Manjushra Bodhisattva and the past layman Vimalakarti and other such great beings, we pay homage. We also take refuge in the Venerable Ananda, foremost in hearing, and the Venerable Shariputra, foremost in wisdom. We prostrate to the 5 aspects of the Dharmakaya of those beyond training. As for the 5 aspects of the Dharmakaya, it consists of discipline, concentration, wisdom, liberation, and knowledge and vision of liberation. In this context, Dharmakaya means Dharma aggregates. It's not the Dharmakaya we speak of in Mahayana Buddhism, one of the 3 bodies. Here, kaya means aggregates accumulated together. That is to say, we pay homage to the sublime merits of the 5 aspects of discipline, concentration, and wisdom of the stage beyond training. We also entrust our lives to the initial causes of beginning study. As for the initial causes of beginning study, the foundations of a beginning bodhisattva, for example, non-dual wisdom, renunciation, and bodhicitta, that is, non-dual view, great compassion, and bodhicitta. In this way, their homage is complete. This section is not in the Tibetan version, but it's in the Chinese. The meaning is also relatively straightforward. Just now, Prince Virtuous to see and the 3,000 others listened to the Buddha's teachings. They joyfully paid homage and accepted the teachings. They again spoke the verses below. That middle passage just now is a bit unclear. Next, we'll discuss a section here. The Tathagata's 10 epithets, we'll discuss those in the next session. For now, let's look at these verses they spoke. What do Buddhas say is real? What is unreal? Neither the real nor the unreal can truly be grasped. Such is the true reality, free from elaborations regarding all phenomena. Out of compassion for sentient beings, the Buddha skillfully turns the Dharma wheel. Everyone should understand this meaning. Any Dharma proclaimed by the Buddhas, whether it truly exists, which ones truly exist, which ones don't truly exist, the truly existent and the non-truly existent, these two actually cannot be obtained. In the ultimate sense, all that the Buddhas proclaim is without true existence. In the conventional sense, before sentient beings, things certainly appear to exist before their eyes, ears, nose, and tongue. But whether truly existent or not truly existent, in the ultimate definitive nature, none can be obtained. Such is the true reality, free from elaborations regarding all phenomena. Their true characteristic truly has no elaborations whatsoever, free from the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations. Because of this reason, when the Buddha had just attained complete awakening, he had already realized this state. At this time, the Buddha said, "My Dharma is difficult to understand and difficult to know. My Dharma is extremely sublime, difficult to understand and difficult to know." So he initially remained silent, staying alone in the forest. Later, because Indra, Brahma, and others made requests. Out of compassion for sentient beings, he skillfully turned the Dharma wheel. This passage actually is found in the commentary on the initial chapter of the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra. The wording is the same, not a single character is different. So I'm thinking, we said at the beginning, the Chinese translator of the Sutra of Great Liberation is not very clear. We don't have specific details. Even in the Dunhuang version or other versions, the translator's name isn't clear. Through many clues, could it be that Kumārajīva translated this? I hope all of you scholars and researchers will also examine this possibility. What's the reason for this? The first reason is that the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, as everyone knows, was translated by Kumārajīva. Many parts of the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, the wording is completely the same as we find here. This includes the specific language used for the 10 epithets of the Buddha, which is the same as in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra. These sages completely understand what their own translation style is like. This passage, compared to the wording in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, has no changes whatsoever, exactly the same. There's another reason. Some time ago, we frequently quoted from the Vimalakarti Nirdesha Sutra. The phrasing and translation method in a certain passage passage there are the same to this. They should be translated by the same person. If it weren't the same person, the translation styles of two people couldn't possibly be completely the same. Furthermore, as we study the Sutra of Great Liberation, it becomes evident during the teaching process it particularly resembles the translation style of Kumārajīva's earlier translations. His style and literary style, these are all especially similar. It's quite possible that this sutra, because it's especially sublime, was chosen by him. And what was Kumārajīva's characteristic? When he was translating, he selected especially good, especially sublime sutras and shastras to translate. In India, too, these were also especially important. This is why Kumārajīva is especially revered within the Han Chinese Buddhist tradition. I recently came across a scholar who said that before Tsongkhapa, it was Guru Padmasambhava in the 8th century who laid the foundation of Buddhism in Tibet and taught the Dharma in Tibet. His role is equivalent to that of Kumārajīva in the Han regions. Kumārajīva didn't merely translate, but he also had especially forward-looking thought, a kind of creativity, truly teaching the true essence of Buddhist thought in the human world with especially great success. Everyone should also know this. Throughout all these years, his thought has remained influential, and it continues to flourish today for this very reason. Thus, judging by these various clues, we may infer that the Sutra of Great Liberation was also translated by Kumārajīva. Many of us, myself included, share a deep affinity with the numerous sutras and shastras he translated. As long as it's by Kumārajīva, I feel a strong desire to teach it, because his sutra texts have an uncommon kind of blessing power. It seems that when many of us read them, they're also especially smooth, especially easy to understand. We have this feeling. So up to this point. Indeed, the linguistic style found in the Mahaprajaparamita Shastra, I feel it is especially similar. When you have the chance, you should compare the two. After comparing them, you will find it quite possible that this was translated by Kumārajīva. But this is just my speculation. I also don't have anything particularly very reliable or conclusive evidence. It's just a speculation. If you think it's not, or if you happen to discover the translator of the Sutra of Great Liberation found in some other books, that would be wonderful as well. I hope you could share that information with us. All right, that's all for today's teaching.
Jupun Solen Dra
Bandangara Badma Sodargye Bandangara Badma Sodargye Bandangara Badma Sodargye